Is counsel ready for the jury?
We are.
Okay. Thank you, Deputy.
What I'd like to bring up when I get in here. Both the prosecutors.
Mike. Oh,
thanks. There's been a habit by both prosecutors of after the witness testifies to something, they repeat the answer. I haven't objected, but I would like them to stop doing that. Because it's not proper to repeat the answer on anybody.
All right. Could you please refrain from doing that? It's kind of lengthens the proceedings. Okay, please be seated. All right, the state may call its next witness.
Your Honor, the state would call Kerri Blanski to the stand.
Good morning. Please stand behind the witness chair. And over here. Next one over. Do you swear under penalty of perjury that you will truthfully testify in connection with this case?
Yes, I do.
Okay, please take a seat. And please remove your mask. State your full name and spell it.
Kerri, K-E-R-R-Y, last name Blanski, B-L-A-N-S-K-I.
All right. There's 4 rules to testifying. The court reporter is taking down everything that's being said. You have to answer yes or no instead of shaking your head. And please don't say uh-huh and because we don't get a clear record. Only one person can talk at a time, so wait until the question is finished before you answer. If you don't understand a question, please let the lawyer know and it will be clarified. And finally, if an objection is made, please stop talking immediately. Do not answer the question unless I tell you to. Counsel?
Ms. Blanski, you might have to pull the microphone just a little bit closer to make sure everybody can hear okay. Thank you. I want to draw your attention to April 11 of this year. And if you could just tell us, well, let me ask it this way. At that point in time on that day, were you living in the area of 63rd Avenue and Catherine in Brooklyn Center?
Yes, sir.
And I'm going to show you on the screen sort of an overhead photograph we have of the area. So if we could put up Exhibit 1. Do you see that in front of you?
Yes, I do.
Do you recognize that?
Yes, I do.
And so is the location where your home is on this photograph?
My home is just slightly out of the photograph on the far right.
Okay. In front of you there should be one of these little styluses. Can you take that and just actually write on the screen kind of where your home would be in this?
Right. Oops. Sorry about that. There's my house right there.
Okay. So you've drawn a red X there, which would be just to the east of Catherine, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And Your Honor, at this time I'm going to offer Exhibit 2. It's the other photograph of the scene of the area.
Any objection to Exhibit 2? There being no objection, Exhibit 2 will be admitted into evidence.
All right, showing you Exhibit 2. Do you see what's depicted in that photograph?
Yes, sir.
And do you recognize the area depicted there?
I do.
Would this have any more of your home depicted on it?
We have a lot of tree coverage in our yard, so you cannot see the house, but you can see the trees.
Okay.
So
Yeah, and that, yes, if you would just go ahead and draw it again.
there.
All right. So again, we're looking at the just east of where Catherine runs into 63rd, correct?
Yes.
All right. And prior to April 11th, how long had you lived in that location?
It was 20 years last June.
And 63rd Avenue there, is that a fairly busy street?
It's a fairly heavily traveled road.
Is that kind of a main street in the area?
I would say so.
And living there, have you heard car crashes out on 63rd before?
Oh, yes.
So on April 11th, did you that day hear what you thought was a crash?
I did.
You just described for the jurors kind of where you were when you heard that.
I was in the upstairs bathroom. I had just walked up there and I heard the crash. I shouted downstairs to my husband, was there a crash? And he said, yes, I believe so. I went downstairs and he had already gone outside, which is what we normally do to make sure everybody's okay. He was outside, I came outside, and he told me that we should stay back. Another police car had pulled up. A police car was traveling west on 63rd towards Catherine and had slowly rolled up to Catherine. The officer had gotten out and was standing in the fold of his car door with his gun drawn, and so we stayed back. We didn't know exactly what was going on, and we were watching from the corner of our home.
Okay. So if I can, could you draw, just mark on this Exhibit 2 the location of the officer with the gun drawn?
Must have been about there.
Okay. And did you see other cars that you thought might have been involved in the crash?
Yes, there was another vehicle that was on the sidewalk on the, that'd be the south side of, right across from the arrow there.
Okay. And how many cars did you see that appeared to have been in a crash?
Just the two cars, just the white car near where the arrow is, and then there was I believe it was a gray car across the road on the sidewalk.
Okay. And so did you then stay out there for a while and observe what was going on?
Yes, we did.
On that day, April 11th, did you have some security cameras on the outside of your house?
Yes, sir.
And eventually, did you take a look at those videos to see if it had captured the crash?
We did.
And at some point, were you interviewed by law enforcement officers about the crash, and did you provide them the videos?
Yes, we did.
Okay. And Your Honor, I'm going to offer Exhibit 36, which is a portion of that video.
Any objection to 36? There being no objection, 36 will be admitted into evidence and you may publish.
Okay, I'm going to run the video now, okay? Now, if we could just pause this here for a moment, please. And so do you recognize this video?
Yes, I do.
And can you describe for the jurors, that yard that's really in the center of the photograph, whose yard is that?
Yes, sir, that's our yard. You can see the swing set in the backyard and the gate going into our backyard.
So this is sort of a side yard?
Yes, yes.
And what is the roadway in the photograph at?
That's 63rd Avenue.
Okay. And then towards the top of the photograph, there's a street that goes off away from your home. Do you know which street that is?
That's Catherine Avenue.
Okay. And so this is just security video, a security camera that you have on the outside of your home.
Yes, sir.
And then we will, the timestamp on the top of the security video, do you believe that to be accurate recording of the time? I'm sorry?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And then let's go ahead and play. And let's pause right here for a moment, please. And I guess just for the record, we're looking here at the timestamp of 2:02:24, correct?
Yes.
Now, you told us earlier that you saw two vehicles that you believed had been involved in a crash. Why did you think that they were the ones involved in the crash when you went out there?
Because there normally aren't cars in that position on the sidewalks, I suppose.
Yeah. You were thinking, that's a dumb question, right? But was there also damage that you noticed to both cars?
I did. The gray car on the south side of the road was heavily damaged. The white car had some damage. I couldn't tell very well because the police car had pulled up, so I couldn't really see much damage. It was just the positioning of the vehicle that led me to believe it was involved.
So if you could, again, take that stylus. I know the gray car is kind of hard to see, but can you draw a circle around that, where that gray car is? Okay. And then the other car involved in the crash, can you draw a circle around that?
Yeah.
And is that also the police car that you
Yes.
saw arrive? All right. So. And then let's just let the exhibit run, please. All right, so let's pause it right here, please. I'm just going to stop this here, and for the record, the timestamp indicates 2:02:47. After hearing the crash, did you go outside and observe what was going on?
Yes, I did.
And as we look at this Exhibit 36, can you just kind of describe for the jurors where you went? Well, let me ask you it this way. How long were you outside there that day?
I would say the remainder of the day. We were out there for all the events that unfolded.
And while you were out there, did you just kind of stay in the area that's depicted here in the security video?
I stayed here for quite a while and then went to my neighbor's. Well, I don't remember exactly what sequence. Actually, I was in the front for a while, went into the backyard. By the time I got back there, the people in the gray car that were on the sidewalk closest to us were no longer in the vehicle. And at some point in the day, I was at my neighbor's house across the street. Not in this picture, they're not.
Fair to say that there was a lot of police officers that responded to this.
Yes, sir.
And did you also then sort of help with some bystanders or some other people in the area eventually?
After hours, it was a chilly day, chilly April day, and the family of Daunte showed up. I assumed that his mother had arrived because she was very, very visibly upset, and I overheard somebody say that was his mother. After a while, other people that I assumed were family showed up, and there's a retaining wall right there on the right. That's where they were sitting, right next to our yard. After a few hours, we brought out a couple chairs. I don't think Daunte's mother and father were still there. Just from what I've learned after the fact, I think it was his brother and a young woman. We brought in a couple chairs and a blanket.
So then what I think we should probably do is just let Exhibit 36 run to the end, please. Okay. That's all I have here. Thank you. Go across.
Okay. All right, thank you. You may step down. The state may call its next witness.
This time, Your Honor, the state calls Officer Alan Salvosa.
Okay, good morning, officer. Will you please come forward? Stand behind the witness chair, which is right next to me.
Yes, Your Honor.
Raise your right hand. Do you swear under penalty of perjury that you will truthfully testify?
I do, Your Honor.
Please have a seat.
Thank you, Your Honor.
And then please remove your mask. And state your full name and spell it.
It's Alan, A-L-A-N, Douglas, D-O-U-G-L-A-S, last of Salvosa, S-A-L, V as in Victor, O-S-A.
Okay, officer, just a couple of reminders. Yes or no answers. Don't shake your head. Don't say uh-huh or uh-uh. Only one person can talk at a time. Please wait until the question is finished before you answer. If you don't understand a question, let the lawyer know. And finally, if an objection is made, stop talking. Don't answer unless I tell you to.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Counsel?
Good morning. Could you please state your occupation for the record?
I'm a police officer of the City of Brooklyn Center, sir.
How long have you been a police officer?
Going on 12 years in January, sir.
Did you work anywhere in the law enforcement capacity prior to joining the Brooklyn Center Police Department 12 years ago?
I was in a non-sworn position with the Richfield Police Department. Otherwise, all my sworn experience has been with the Brooklyn Center Police Department, sir.
And throughout that time, you've been a licensed peace officer?
Yes, sir.
And you take continuing education courses to maintain that license?
Yes, sir.
And you're trained to respond to emergencies?
Yes, sir.
And in report writing?
Yes, sir.
Do you have a specific assignment with the Brooklyn Center Police Department?
I'm in the patrol division, sir.
And when working on patrol, are you equipped with a body-worn camera?
Yes, sir.
Could you describe how that works?
The body-worn camera would sit basically on my chest. It can be activated by me pressing the button, or it has certain triggers. It's linked to my squad car camera. So if I turn on my squad car and hit the lights and sirens, it automatically syncs and will also activate. Kind of a nutshell how it works, sorry.
And that video is retained after your shift and can be reviewed later, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
As a patrol officer, could you explain your duties?
The duties are to respond to 911 calls for service if people call 911. I have to respond, take reports. We do proactive patrol, investigate suspicious persons, respond to medical emergencies, do traffic enforcement, kind of jack of all trades, I guess.
Mm-hmm. When you're on patrol, do you travel in a marked squad?
Yes, sir. Sometimes in an unmarked, but for the most part, a marked squad.
Okay. And how many officers are typically in a squad car in Brooklyn Center?
Typically one, unless you're in a training position, sir.
So, unless you're in a training position, you're driving one person in a squad.
Yes, sir.
And when you're working on patrol, are there other officers on patrol in other squads during your shift?
Yes, sir.
How many in a typical shift, assuming full staff?
Anywhere from 3 to 7, depending on shift minimums and the time of day, sir.
Is there a supervising officer also on duty?
Yes, sir.
Is that person typically of the sergeant rank?
Yes, sir. Typically, it would be a sergeant. Unless there isn't a sergeant, then it would fall to the most senior officer.
Is it common to refer to that type of sergeant as a patrol sergeant?
Yes, sir.
And with regard to the 3 to 7 officers on a given shift, do you communicate with each other during the shift?
Yes, sir.
How do you communicate with other officers?
Typically, by the radio, we have our dispatch channel, a channel where we can speak to other Brooklyn Center officers. Email, we can send each other messages through our computer system, and obviously cell phones.
Is radio-to-radio communication a common part of your shift?
Yes, sir.
And how big is your patrol area?
The city of Brooklyn Center is 8 square miles, and it's broken up into 5 districts. So about 1/5 of an 8 square mile, depending on what district you're assigned to.
Do individual patrol officers stay in their districts during the course of the shift, or do you drive throughout those districts?
You can drive throughout the city. You just have to be able to respond to your specific district.
So you essentially have a zone coverage during the
Yes,
shift.
sir.
Okay. Now I have a few questions about how patrol officers assist each other during their shifts. Let's say you have an individual stop for something basic like speeding. Do you communicate that you're out stopping a vehicle to your fellow officers?
Yes, sir.
How do you do that?
You would radio the dispatcher and basically say that you're out on a traffic stop or stopping a vehicle for whatever reason, or depending on the type of call, you would basically use your call number and then tell the dispatcher what you're doing. It would be something to the effect of, 3219, I'm on a traffic stop with whatever the license plate was, or 3219, I'm stopping a suspicious person, and then give the location of your stop.
Does that prompt other officers on your shift to do anything automatically?
Yes.
And what is that?
Well, if they're in the area, they would probably start to your location. They would obviously look at their computer and see that you were assigned to something. They would hear it over the radio, and so they would have an idea that you're out with something, and if they were close, typically they would try to respond, or they would maybe ask you if you needed backup, depending on the type of call.
That sort of response, do you have to specifically ask for it, or is it just part of the practice of how you support each other during a given shift?
It's a bit of both. Sometimes, depending on the location or the level of training of the officer, you might ask them if they need backup. Sometimes if you're close, you might respond. Other times, if it's not that big a deal, you might just acknowledge that you hear them, but it all just depends on a case-by-case basis.
Okay. How often during a typical shift would a sergeant stop to support you?
Depends. Probably a couple times a shift, depending on how busy it is, or if he's close by a call, he will stop by. If it's any major call, a supervisor will always try to stop out.
Okay. I have a couple of questions specifically about you, Officer Salvosa. Have you held any specific assignments or duties during your time with the Brooklyn Center Police Department?
Yes, sir.
Could you tell us about those assignments?
I am a field training officer. I was on the SWAT team, and I'm on the West Metro Mobile Command Field Force.
Okay, let's break each of those down. Maybe first, could you explain what it means to be a member of the SWAT team?
I'm a member of the SWAT team of Brooklyn Center. Basically, we respond to high-risk calls for service, barricaded suspects, warrants, and things like that, where you typically need a higher level of response than just a patrol response, hostage negotiation, things like that.
Okay. And what about the West Command Mobile Field Force?
That's a joint partnership with other agencies and for civil unrest and things like that. Basically, we would be the guys that would be out there, depending on the level of civil unrest, to kind of protect buildings and property and life.
Okay. Now, in terms of being a field training officer, how long have you been a field training officer?
Approximately 5 or 6 years, sir.
Could you explain what a field training officer is?
Field training officer is someone who takes new recruits or new people to Brooklyn Center who are becoming cops and has to train them and evaluate them, monitor their progress, and make recommendations whether they move to the next level of training or identifies additional things they would need to improve on before successfully moving on as a police officer in the City of Brooklyn Center.
Does being a field training officer require any special skills or training?
Yes, typically you'd have to have some time with the Brooklyn Center Police Department. You'd have to show knowledge of craft, discipline, some leadership, some mentoring. You'd have to go to a specialized school to be certified to be a field trainer.
Okay. And it does require a good understanding of policy?
Yes, a working knowledge.
Now, describe how a given day may be different when you're serving in your role as a field training officer or FTO versus not being an FTO on that day.
If I was an FTO, and I'd have a lot more freedom, there's a lot more, I'm just by myself, I respond to my calls, I can do whatever I want, essentially, in terms of how I want to patrol or how I want my day to go. I'd still respond to calls, but there's a lot less paperwork. As a field trainer, there's a lot more mentoring, a lot more training, a lot more paperwork, a lot more trying to evaluate and test your probation or your trainee.
And part of that is intending to impart policy and reasonable practice on them, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. One additional background topic. Have you ever needed to provide any emergency medical aid during the course of your career?
Yes, sir.
I just want to talk about that for a minute. What medical training have you received as a Brooklyn Center police officer?
First responder certified EMR, basically first aid, CPR, how to treat wounds, how to triage, things like that.
Okay. And how often have you utilized that degree of medical training in the field?
Almost daily on a shift. We're always responding to some type of medical, whether it's someone feeling sick, someone who fell down, someone who has a head injury, car accidents, heart attacks, strokes, all kinds of medical situations. Anytime anyone would call 911 for a medical emergency, police would typically respond depending on how busy we were.
Okay. Now, during your career, prior to April 11th of 2021, did you work with a fellow officer named Kim Potter?
Yes, sir.
Could you describe how you knew her?
She was officer when I started.
And did you know her professionally throughout your career?
Yes, sir. I've known her since I've been a police officer.
Beyond your role as a fellow police officer, did you have any other interactions with her in a professional capacity?
Yes, she was the union president.
The president of the police union?
Yes, sir.
And she was available to, if you needed to speak to her on issues of advice, etc.?
Yes, sir.
If you saw her in person, would you recognize her?
Yes, sir.
Is she seated in the courtroom?
Yes, sir.
I will stipulate that it's a Kim Potter sitting next to me.
All right.
Given your experience with Officer Potter, do you believe that you engaged in radio communication with her in the past?
Yes, sir.
Given that experience, do you believe that you would have the ability to recognize her voice over the radio?
Yes, sir.
I now want to discuss the events of April 11th of 2021. Do you recall that day?
Yes, sir.
Were you on duty?
Yes, sir.
Do you recall what your shift was?
I believe it was a power shift or a day shift. I'm not certain, but I was working either a 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. or an 8 a.m. to 8 p.m.
Okay. At approximately 2 p.m., you were on duty, correct?
Yes, sir.
Do you recall what you were doing?
I believe I was grabbing lunch.
Did you receive any communication from any fellow officers around that time?
Yes, sir.
And what communication was that?
I heard over the radio that Officer Luckey had initiated a traffic stop somewhere on 63rd Avenue North in Brooklyn Center.
Okay. Did you respond to that information?
I acknowledged it. I heard it over the radio, but I didn't acknowledge it.
Okay. Did you respond to that information?
Yes.
And how did you respond?
I decided to drive towards that traffic stop.
Okay. As you responded, did you know any other information about that traffic stop beyond that it was a vehicle which was stopped?
I believe there was some communication about possibly having a warrant attached to the vehicle or person, and they wanted another squad.
Okay. Now, I have just another question about 63rd Avenue. Would you agree that this is a well-traveled road in Brooklyn Center?
Yes, sir.
Is that a road that you as a patrol officer have spent some time on?
Yes, sir.
A lot of cars going by?
Yes, sir. It's a major artery. You can essentially get from the center of the city all the way into Brooklyn Park.
And you're traveling in that squad car by yourself that day, correct?
Yes, sir.
Did you make it to the actual location of the traffic stop?
No, sir.
And why did you not?
Prior to arriving on the traffic stop, as I was driving westbound, I was probably a block and a half away when I observed, I could see the flashing lights of Officer Luckey's squad car. I observed a white Buick take off from that traffic stop at a high rate of speed. It crossed the eastbound lane onto the westbound lane, essentially coming directly head-on at me, and it collided with a vehicle in front of me, sir.
And could you give the cross streets of where you saw that collision take place?
Approximately 63rd and Catherine Drive, sir.
Was that a startling observation for you at that time?
Yes, sir.
What did you do when you saw that crash?
I immediately got on the radio. I notified the dispatcher that I had a PI accident or a personal injury accident stemming from a flee from the traffic stop. I asked for an ambulance to come immediately to the area. The vehicle, after it hit the car in front of me, the car that it hit went to my left, or basically south, and stopped. The Buick basically hit the car and came to a rest on the corner of 63rd and Catherine in the northwest corner. It had heavy front end damage. It was heavily tinted. Because it was a fleeing vehicle from a traffic stop and it was a felony crime, I took my handgun out and pointed it at the vehicle. I ordered everyone in the vehicle to put their hands up even though I couldn't see. And I called for additional help, sir.
Did you see any other officers in that area?
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, beyond Officer Luckey's squad in front of you?
No, sir.
Would you agree that traffic was still traveling back and forth on 63rd?
Yes, sir.
And as you arrived, did you have any information about the medical condition of anyone in that Buick?
No, sir, not as I arrived initially. The windows were rolled up. It was tinted. I couldn't see inside.
Yep. And was there any information about the medical status of those individuals communicated to you via radio at that time?
No. There may have been, but I didn't hear it because I was yelling at the car trying to get them to put their hands up.
Did you know whether anyone had a basis to believe that an occupant had a weapon at that time?
Sorry, can you repeat the question, sir?
Did you know whether anyone had a basis to believe that anyone had a weapon in that vehicle?
I did not have specific information that that car had a weapon at the time, no.
Did you receive any information from any of the officers at the scene of the traffic stop at that time?
I don't recall. There may have been, but I was yelling at the car to get their hands up, so.
How about Officer Potter specifically? Do you remember her reporting anything to you over the radio about the condition of anyone in that Buick?
No, sir.
Were you surprised that you didn't receive any information from anyone at the traffic stop?
I was confused.
Would it have helped you to learn more information about the occupants in the vehicle at that time?
Your objection is irrelevant in the conclusion of the witness.
Do you want to rephrase the question, counsel, please?
You had previously testified you didn't know how many people were in the vehicle or what was going on in that vehicle. Would it have helped you to know more information about what was going on in the vehicle as you approached?
Which vehicle are we talking
The white Buick, Officer Salvosa.
It may have helped depending on what the information was.
Okay. So as you arrived and you directed the occupants of the white Buick at gunpoint, could you see anything in the vehicle at that time?
I saw some movement, but it was heavily tinted. So it was kind of hard to see. I could discern movement. That was about it.
Did you attempt to address the occupants in the vehicle?
Yes, I gave several commands for them to put their hands up.
And did you see any physical response to your commands?
There was some movement, and at some point the passenger lowered her window.
And was there any verbal response at that time?
I think the passenger said, "I can't," or something similar, and then the passenger said something about, "He's not breathing."
Under those circumstances, would you describe your tone at that point?
It was aggressive. It was a little bit amped up because of the flea, and I had him at gunpoint.
As you were communicating with those occupants, did you have any other communication with fellow officers?
I asked for additional squads to help me. I informed them that the passenger and the victim were not cooperating. There was a lot of movement. They wouldn't exit the vehicle. I believe I updated that the male was possibly not breathing and I needed additional help because I was by myself to address the issue and try to get the male out to get him help.
After a period of time, were you able to have some communication with the individual in the passenger seat?
Yes.
And could you describe this individual, her appearance?
She was a female. She had some facial injuries from the crash. She was crying.
Do you recall whether that individual gave you further information?
Just that he wasn't breathing, the male driver.
And based on your observations, did you see anything that contradicted her account that he was not breathing?
I could barely see him. He was kind of slumped back in the driver's seat.
So you'd agree that for a period of several minutes, you held the white Buick at gunpoint. No one came in or out of the vehicle.
Object to that is leading repetitions, Your Honor.
I'll let you answer that question. The objection is overruled.
Can you repeat the question, sir?
I said you'd agree that for a period of several minutes, you held the white Buick at gunpoint and no one came in or out of the vehicle.
Yes, sir.
Did other officers arrive at the scene eventually?
Yes, sir.
How long did it take for other officers to arrive?
Felt like forever, but probably a couple minutes.
Did multiple squads arrive?
Yes, sir.
Were they all from Brooklyn Center?
No, sir. There was multiple agencies. Hennepin County, Brooklyn Park, Champlin, Crystal, I think Robbinsdale. I don't know the specifics, but those ones I know for sure were there.
When they arrived, did you interact with these other officers?
Yes.
Could you describe your interactions?
I briefed them initially on what I had, that the vehicle that I had my gun pointed at was a fleeing vehicle from the traffic stop. There was one passenger in the front seat, one driver, and there was potentially a passenger in the back seat because I couldn't see into the back seat, but I assumed there was.
And did you, at that point, with your fellow officers, make a plan of what to do next?
Yep, we kind of talked about it, and then a supervisor arrived on scene, and we started coordinating what the next steps would be to safely remove the passenger, remove the driver, and then provide aid.
At that point, did you have further verbal interaction with the occupants of the vehicle?
Other than telling them to put their hands up, I think I told the female several times to get out of the car so we can help the driver, because I knew time was of the essence and he wasn't breathing, but there was no way to safely go up there without her cooperation.
And what did she do in response to that?
Eventually she got out of the vehicle, put her hands up, and then walked towards another officer that gave her commands.
Did you have any direct interaction with her?
After that point, no, sir.
Do you know where she went after that encounter?
I believe she was placed in the back of a squad car.
Okay. Now, after the female's removed from the vehicle, could you see any activity in the Buick?
Very limited. I think the driver was still in the driver's seat. The back door was still closed. It was still tinted. And we were kind of gathering information as to whether there was another party in the car and what we could see and kind of coordinate the response.
So at that time you didn't know whether it was just the driver or whether there were other individuals in the vehicle?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Eventually, did you confirm how many individuals were in that vehicle?
Yes, sir. We were kind of able to get a better view. I think as more officers arrived, they had better angles of view into the car. I think someone had spoken to the female who basically said it was just her and the male driver.
Okay. Beyond the information that he appeared to be injured and the visual observation that he appeared non-responsive, did you know anything else about the driver?
No, sir.
Ultimately, you did take action toward the Buick, correct? You as a group of officers.
Yes, sir.
How many officers were present at that point?
I don't know the exact number, but I'd say upwards of 5 or 6.
Okay. Could you describe the group's actions toward the Buick?
They kind of made up a plan. They asked for a bunker, which is a ballistic shield. There was talk about having a 40mm launcher, which is a non-lethal, less lethal weapon system that shoots foam rounds. They kind of tried to figure out the best way to approach the vehicle. I think at one point they were going to come from the back of the vehicle, but then they decided to come around towards the front.
Okay. From the time that you observed the crash, from the time that officers approached the vehicle, how much time elapsed?
It would be hard to say, sir. I'd say 5 to 10 minutes, give or take, ballpark.
And your body-worn camera was on this time?
Yes, sir.
So that would accurately reflect the time that it took between these two occasions?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And did you participate in approaching the driver in the vehicle?
Not initially, sir, no.
Okay. What did you do?
I held back as they approached, and I lowered my weapon to avoid crossfire issues.
And did you, after they approached the vehicle, did you end up assisting the group in any particular way?
Yes, I grabbed my medical bag and my AED from the trunk of my squad car and gave them the medical bag and was prepared to assist them in providing medical aid.
By that time, did you observe what the group of officers actually did with regard to the driver?
They had extricated him and pulled him out towards the front of the car and were giving him first aid. They were starting to administer aid.
Okay. And could you observe his condition at that time?
Barely. I think I observed it for a little bit. I dropped the medical bag off. I believe I was trying to put on gloves till I was ordered to tape off the crime scene.
Okay. Did you later learn the identity of that individual that was pulled out of the vehicle?
Yes.
And what was his identity?
I believe it was Daunte Wright.
Okay. Did you participate in any of the life-saving measures at that time?
Other than providing my medical bag and my AED to the officers already working on him.
So you testified that you were directed to go tape off the area? Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Could you describe what that means to the jury?
It means taking police tape and securing a perimeter around the area to preserve evidence, to prevent tampering of evidence, to keep onlookers and people that shouldn't be allowed in the scene. It prevents people from trampling the scene, other vehicles, other cars, other vehicles, other people, non-investigated people into the crime scene.
After you taped off a certain part of the area, what did you do after that?
I believe someone had said that they spoke to an individual who claimed she was the mother of the deceased.
Let's pause on that for just one moment. Perhaps I should say, after you took some time to tape off 63rd Avenue, do you recall standing in the area where the white Buick was located?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Did you learn about the status of the driver at that point?
Yes, sir.
And what was the medical status of the driver?
That he had been shot.
Okay. I should say this. Did you learn also that he had been pronounced dead?
Yes, sir.
During this period of time, prior to speaking to any witnesses, did you have any information that this was an officer-involved shooting?
No, sir.
Okay. Now, you had mentioned that you heard that someone had come to the scene?
Yes, sir.
And who was that?
I believe it was Daunte's mother, Kerri Wright.
And do you recall when they came to the scene?
It was pretty quick, sir. I would say within 5 to 10 minutes of it all kind of settling down.
And where were they located when you first saw them?
They were just outside the initial perimeter and crime scene tape, just to the east of Catherine Drive, probably a block and a half, the next intersection, maybe, excuse me.
How far away were they from Mr. Wright's body at that time?
A block. I think they were at the next corner, so a city block.
Did you end up speaking to Mr. Wright's parents?
Briefly.
Was there any reason that you ended up being the one that spoke to his parents?
At that time, I was one of the Brooklyn Center officers, and I had no indication that the case was not going to be handled by Brooklyn Center, so it would have been typical for a Brooklyn Center officer to investigate incidents in Brooklyn Center.
Did you obtain information from who you understood to be Daunte Wright's mother?
Yes, sir.
What information did you obtain?
That she asked a lot of questions. She said that...
The objection is sustained.
At some point during this period of time, did you hear information that this was an officer-involved shooting?
Yes, sir.
How long did you speak with Mr. Wright's parents?
I don't know the exact minutes, but probably anywhere from 5 to 15 minutes, depending. I wasn't timing myself. I apologize.
After you concluded speaking to Mr. Wright's parents, what did you do?
I was informed that I had to return back to the police department and be isolated because I was a potential witness.
And who communicated that information to you?
I believe it would be Sergeant Lawrence.
And did you understand that was per policy or protocol?
Yes, sir.
After that decision was made and you were informed of that, could you describe what happened to you?
I was escorted by another officer to the Brooklyn Center Police Department, and I was given a quiet place to be by myself without any interaction with anyone else except for an attorney.
Do you know the name of the officer who escorted you to the Brooklyn Center Police Department?
Yes, sir.
And who was that?
Officer Dan Irish with the Champlin Police Department.
Okay. And had you known Officer Irish in any other capacity besides that day?
Yes, sir.
And what was that?
We served together in the West Mobile Command and Mobile Field Force.
How long were you at the Brooklyn Center Police Department that day?
A couple hours, I believe, sir.
Now, did you do anything else with regard to this case?
No, sir.
Did you collect any evidence?
No, sir.
Did you interview any witnesses?
No, sir.
Did you write any reports?
Yes, sir. For my attorney, for my statement for what happened.
Did you speak to anyone from the BCA after that incident?
No, sir.
Did you witness any of the events firsthand which caused Mr. Wright's death?
No, sir.
Okay. Now I want to go through a couple exhibits with you. Could you put up Exhibit 1? Officer Salvosa, I'm showing you Exhibit 1 on the screen in front of you. Can you see that?
Yes, sir.
Do you recognize that as a map of the area that we've been discussing this morning?
Yes, sir.
Could you identify or at least point at the path of your vehicle as you arrived?
So I would have been going westbound, sir, this way.
Okay, I see you make an X there on the right side of that map, directly below Catherine Avenue? Catherine Avenue?
Catherine Drive, yes, sir.
Catherine Drive. And where was the white Buick as it came to a stop?
It would have been right at this X, sir.
The blue X right there on the map?
Yes, sir.
And where did officers pull Mr. Wright's body?
Sorry, can you repeat that again, sir?
Where did officers pull Mr. Wright's body out of the vehicle and set it down?
Probably right here, sir. Sorry.
You're doing fine.
Just north of that.
Just north of the X?
Yes, sir.
And where did you assist with the taping of the perimeter?
It would have been further to the east, sir, so it wouldn't be on this map, but probably if you look at city blocks, it'd be the next intersection.
Okay. And where were you when you approached Katie Bryan, Mr. Wright's mother?
Would have been, it's not on this map, but further east, the next intersection.
Further east off this map. Okay. I now want to show you a video that you saw before trial. Am I correct that the squad car that you were driving that day was equipped with a squad video recorder?
Yes, sir.
And how does that squad video recorder activate?
It has certain triggers. If I activate my lights and siren, if I press the record button myself, if I go over a certain speed limit, it activates. There's sensors if I'm involved in some kind of crash or something, it activates.
Yep. And do you know whether your squad video captured your arrival in that vehicle collision you've testified about?
It did, sir.
Okay. And you've had an opportunity to review that prior to trial?
Yes, sir.
At this time, Your Honor, the state will offer Exhibit 37. That's a squad video of Officer Salvosa's arrival.
There be no objection. 37 will be admitted into evidence and you may publish.
Let's do that at this time. Maybe we just pause at the beginning. Officer Salvosa, I'm showing you just the first second of your exhibit. Would you agree there's a timestamp on here of 14:01 and 44 seconds?
Yes, sir.
For most everybody in the world, that's 2:01 and 44 seconds?
Yes, sir.
Would you testify today that that was an accurate time?
Yes, sir.
And could you just describe to the jury what they see on their screen right now?
So you're seeing a view from my quad car camera, which should have been centered. If I'm driving, it would be right here. It is capturing my movements as I'm driving westbound on 63rd.
Okay. And we'll hit play at this point.
She's saying that she's tired of being a Democrat because of the absolute.
3219, PI accident, 63rd Captain Drive, left from 38 stop, start north on the Reds. Put your hands up! Put your hands up! Put your hands up!
Officer Salvosa, the video concluded, and as it began, would you agree that you were following one of the vehicles that ultimately ended up in the crash, correct?
Yes, sir.
Prior to the vehicle collision, did you see debris flying to the left of that vehicle?
Yes, sir.
Could you identify for the jury what you saw flying out there?
I believe it was probably, there's a median there with a sign, so I believe it was probably debris from the vehicle or something hitting kind of the median before it hit the car in front of me, sir.
Okay. I now want to show you another video. It's a composite video of your arrival that you saw before trial. I just have a few preliminary questions about it. You've testified today that you were wearing your body-worn camera, correct?
Yes, sir.
And it was activated as you arrived at the scene.
Yes, sir.
In addition, are you aware that there was a home surveillance video that captured your arrival at the scene?
I was made aware after the fact. I wasn't aware at the time.
During a prior meeting, did you see a video which was a synced composite of the surveillance video and your body-worn camera at the time of your arrival?
Yes, sir.
All right. At this time, Your Honor, the state is going to offer Exhibit 38. It's a composite video of Officer Salvosa's arrival at the scene.
Any objection to 38? Is there any objection to 38? There being no objection, 38 will be admitted into evidence and you may publish, counsel.
Okay, let's play that video this time. Maybe I'll just pause the image here at this time. If I had to look at that screen, it would be much more difficult to see, but Officer Salvosa, would you agree that there are essentially two images on the screen right now?
Yes, sir.
And can you identify what the screen is on the lower right?
That appears to be my body cam video, sir.
Okay. And would you agree that there's a timestamp at the bottom?
Yes, sir.
Yep. And that's listed at 2:02 and 5 seconds?
Yes, sir.
And then there's a image on the top left, correct?
Yes, sir.
And that's the surveillance video?
Yes, sir.
Okay, let's play the video.
Is saying that she's tired of being a Democrat because of the absolutism that she's
3219, PI accident, 63rd and Catherine Drive, fled from 38 stop, start north on the Reds.
Put your hands up! 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 Put them up! Put your hands up!
Officer Salvosa, I'd like to now play for the jury a third video. Do you recall that your body-worn camera continues on past that point, beyond the point, and actually captures your interaction with the vehicle and ultimately the response by the group of officers?
Yes, sir.
And you've had an opportunity to review that prior to trial, correct?
Yes, sir.
At this time, the state offers Exhibit 39. That's a portion of Officer Salvosa's body-worn camera.
Any objection? Denied. There being no objection, 39 will be admitted and you may publish.
Thank you, Your Honor. This video is a bit longer, Officer Salvosa, correct? It's about 16 minutes long?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You will be given an opportunity to discuss issues if they come up. Could we please play that, Mr. Miller?
is saying that she's tired of being a Democrat because of the absolutism that she's
3219, PI accident, 63rd and Catherine Drive, fled from 38 stop, start north on the Reds.
Did you recognize the voice on this video?
Yes, sir.
And whose voice was that?
My voice, sir.
Did you hear yourself say, start north on the Reds?
Yes, sir.
Could you tell the jury what that means?
North Memorial Ambulance is the ambulance company that provides services to Brooklyn Center. So when we refer to them as North, so that would basically refer to an ambulance. On the Reds means the fastest response possible.
Okay. Lights and sirens.
Yes, sir.
You can continue.
Put your hands up! 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 Put them up! Put your hands up!
3219, several at gunpoint, 63rd and Catherine Drive. Start north on the Reds and start 2 rigs. We've got a civilian car injured as well. As soon as we get additional cars, I'll check for injuries. Suspects are not compliant. They're moving around.
Put your hands up!
Hey, sir, stay there. Stay there.
You had directed someone to stay there. Do you know who you were talking to at that time?
I believe it was the person in the injured vehicle.
In the which injured vehicle?
The Subaru that was hit head-on in front of me, sir.
Okay, and can you actually see the other vehicle on your screen now?
It's just in the corner by my door frame. You can kind of see it right outside my door frame.
Okay. Right outside your door frame in the way left side of this image?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You can continue, Mr. Miller.
Put your hands up! Lower the window! Lower the window!
3219. We'll take 2 rigs, stage them a couple blocks out. What's that? 3219. The driver is not breathing. I'll take an additional squad and we'll yank him out. But get him here on the reds. I'm by myself, holding him at gunpoint. $3,219, make it 3 rigs. I got 1 male not breathing, 1 female with facial lacerations, and then I've got another civilian car that I have not been able to check on yet. Incoming squad, come to me at 63rd and Catherine so we can get the driver out and the passenger, and then we'll have to check on anyone else after, but the driver is not breathing according to the passenger. Passenger's moving around, I can't see him. But we're going to need to extricate him if he's not breathing. So I'll wait for additional to come up with the plan. Okay, so female passenger, driver.
I just wanted to pause quickly. 2:06 and right on the dot. Would you agree that that's the timestamp that the video is paused at this time?
Yes, sir.
And in your leftmost view on this screen, do you see the number 1683?
Yes, sir.
Could you tell the jury what you're seeing at this time?
I'm seeing one of the first officers to arrive, which would be a Brooklyn Park squad.
Okay. And I won't interrupt at this time. You're going to begin to explain the situation to him, I assume?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
He's not breathing. 3 from the traffic stop. And then they crashed. 3219. The suspect I'm at gunpoint at is a flea from 38 stop. Ma'am, get out of the car! Passenger, get out of the car! Get out of the car! Get out of the car so we can take care of him! Get out of the car! Yes, you! Get out of the car so we can help him! Get out of the car!
Just grab a bunker if you got one. You got a bunker?
Copy that. Ma'am, put your hands up.
I'm behind you.
Okay, he's not. Yep, I see him. He's not breathing.
Okay.
Hey,
How
Jeff.
many other people are in it?
Just 2.
There's 2 more in it.
One in the back.
You got a 40? All right. Let's have you guys come up from behind then. There's one still.
He's not breathing.
We'll deal with that when we deal with it.
Copy that. I can't see the back seat.
So the back seat possibly has a passenger still moving around. Do we have anybody who has a bunker? My sergeant's coming. Okay. Let's wait till we have one then.
Yep. I'm in no rush. Someone go check on that car, see if they're okay. So he hit that car and crashed too.
3207, if we can still get a bunker to 63rd and Catherine.
300, we've got a bunker. Get that one in the squad here. Clear bunker.
63, oh, that's too far down. I copy. We got one out of the car, still got two in there. Can't see what the one in the back seat's doing.
I'll be arriving.
You want to bring your 40 up here? Oh, you got it there? No, that's fine. That'll work. Take back!
Washington and Robbie.
63rd and Catherine with the, if you have the bunker. Okay. That's it? Okay. Well, we see one in the front passenger seat.
Can you guys make sure no one else is in that vehicle?
You guys want to come up from behind? Would it? You think so? All right, bring it around then. We can do it. We can bring it around. You stay here.
Copy that.
Okay.
2011 white Buick, plate status expired. 1 state records hit.
Hey Al, is there another person in the back or no?
No.
It's just the driver right now.
Yeah, that's all I can see.
She didn't say there's anyone else?
She doesn't say there's anyone else. I couldn't really see because she was moving around so much.
You're going to cover through that front window, okay? And then whoever's on my left, whoever needs to leave on my left, I want you to clear that back.
Buick, plate status expired.
Ready? So block that window. We're coming up. We're moving up.
Copy that.
Officer Salvosa, in the last 2 seconds of this video, first of all, can you identify the timestamp on this video at this time?
It says 2:10 and 55 seconds, sir.
Okay, and some individuals just walked across the screen, correct?
Yes, sir.
Who are those individuals?
Officers from other agencies.
Okay, and what is going on at this time in the video?
They have stacked up and looks like they had a bunker and a rifle, and they're approaching the vehicle to clear it.
Okay. Push forward.
Jesus fucking Christ. Yeah, he's probably not going to make it. What's it? Not shots fired. What's that? Oh, he did? Oh, I didn't yell shots fired.
I got your keys.
Back.
We don't have exits.
Where's he got the shots?
Chest. Does anybody have, do you have your...
I got nothing on the back.
Those kits that we just got?
You want to start putting some tape up there?
Yep. Hey, folks, you're going to have to back up. Back up. Back up, folks. Back up to the end of the block, please. Or the white car. What's that? No, I'm okay, thank you. Yep.
Hey, could you pause at this time? Officer Salvosa, at this time, 2:14 to 21 seconds, would you agree that the audio cut out?
Yes, sir.
And why did the audio cut out?
Me and Officer Fricke had a private conversation.
And in that private conversation, you're able to mute your camera?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay.
Who can I talk to about more patients? I don't know. Nobody knows anything.
So, female patient in here, that's the...
Do you recognize the individual you're addressing at this time?
That's a North paramedic.
Okay. So is this the first time that you've encountered the paramedics on the scene?
No, an ambulance drew by earlier in the video, and a bunch of them were walking around.
Okay.
Female patient, there was someone in this car. $219. Does anyone know the patient, where the patient of the Subaru is? Is she okay? We have North here. What's that? Yeah, let's...
All the way down the path here?
So by the school, I guess, furthest is the school.
So there were shots fired down there?
I don't know. I didn't hear that. It was a traffic stop. They had one with the warrant. As I'm pulling up this way, the car takes off, hits this Subaru and crashes here. He's got a gunshot wound. I didn't fire him, so I have no idea about that. But obviously he's got shot somewhere between there and here. That's all I know.
Do we have anybody else?
No.
I don't know.
So there's a guy that they took into custody, driver, and then the female passenger.
Okay.
So I'm guessing somewhere between there was where the shot was fired. I don't know anything else. Yes, if you would. Start from the school west.
Old people?
Officer Salvosa, do you know who you were addressing at the video at this time, about 2:16?
It's a Brooklyn Park officer.
Okay, and the information you conveyed, is that at the time that you conveyed that information, what you believed occurred?
Yes.
And subsequent to that, you have learned that some of the information you conveyed to that officer was inaccurate, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
They're over here. So North guy's already on them over there. So.
Are we still on the main?
We're still on the main.
I don't know if we need to move it to attack channel, but...
Hey, you guys are...
Jesus. Sure. Yeah, thank you guys for coming.
You agree again, I hear at 217, you've put it on mute.
Yes, sir.
By this time at 217 and 30 seconds, have you ascertained the status of Mr. Wright?
I believe so.
And what was that? That he was deceased by this time, correct?
Yes, sir.
In fact, when you look at the view here at 217 and 50 seconds, do you see something different with where Mr. Wright's body was located?
Yes, sir.
And what's that?
His body's been covered up with a sheet.
Do you know the name of that officer right there in front of you?
That is Officer Jeff Summers, sir.
From the Brooklyn Center Police Department?
Yes, sir.
Okay, the video is concluded at 2:19. Just have a couple other things I want to show you, Officer Salvosa. Are you aware that other officers at the scene were wearing body-worn camera?
Yes, sir.
And those cameras captured footage of you, correct?
Yes, sir.
And prior to today, you've had an opportunity to review 5 still images from those body-worn camera videos?
Yes, sir.
And they show you captured at different events that you've discussed in your testimony today?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, at this time, the state will seek to admit exhibits 40 through 44, still images showing Officer Salvosa.
Okay, if there be no objections, 40 to 46 will be admitted into evidence and you may publish them.
Yep, and Your Honor, if I misspoke, I said I meant 40 to 44.
40 to 44, thank you.
Officer Salvosa, you testified earlier that you carried a medical bag to an officer. Could we show Exhibit 40? Do you see yourself carrying those medical bags in the middle of Exhibit 40?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and then quickly to Exhibit 41. What of the 2 bags, what are each of those? What's contained in each of those bags?
So in my left hand, the black and yellow bag would be an AED or defibrillator. In my right hand, the orange bag would be a medical bag with oxygen, bandages, airways, and different things we might use.
And do you remember the name of the officer to whom you gave those bags?
I do not, sir.
Would it have been Officer Summers, perhaps?
Possibly, sir. I'd have to check.
Okay. And you testified earlier that you spoke to Mr. Wright's parents. Could you please put up Exhibit 42? I'm showing you a third image. Do you see yourself in that image?
Yes, sir. I would be the officer kneeling.
And the 2 individuals you identified as Mr. Wright's parents are the ones seated in the retaining wall?
Yes, sir.
Do you know the name of the other officer who's standing behind you?
That'd be Officer Jeff Summers, sir.
Okay. And now Exhibit 43. And would you agree that this still image is from 2:36 and 55 seconds p.m.?
Yes, sir.
And what is shown in this image?
Me having a conversation with Mrs. Wright.
You testified that Sergeant Lorenz asked Officer Irish to escort you to the Brooklyn Center Police Department. I'd like to show Exhibit 44. Could you describe what you see in this image?
That is me, and then that is Officer Irish to the left of the screen.
Okay, just to be clear, to the left of the screen is Officer Irish?
Yes, sir.
And then the other individual, that's you
Yes, sir.
in there? Okay. And you'd agree that is about 2:48 and 19 seconds?
Yes, sir.
Was this image shortly before you left the scene?
Yes, sir.
Right. And then you completed no further work on the case, correct?
Yes, sir.
No further questions for this witness.
Is there any cause? Yes.
Officer Salvosa, is that how you pronounce it?
Yes, sir.
I'm a lawyer for Kim Potter. You know who she is?
Yes, sir.
She was one of your fellow police officers at Brooklyn Center. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And next to her is Paul Eng, and I believe you've talked to him, have you not, or not?
Possibly. I can't remember, sir.
All right.
I apologize.
In any event, you heard over the radio on this day, of April 11th, that Officer Luckey was doing a traffic stop, correct?
Yes, sir.
And he was he in this, working in Brooklyn Center as you were on that day?
Yes, sir.
And did you know at that time that Officer Luckey's FTO was Miss Potter?
Yes, sir.
And after you heard that he was doing a traffic stop, did you also hear that Sergeant Johnson was going to follow up on it?
I believe so, sir. Yes, sir.
And you decided to drive over that way from where you were at just to see what was going on. Is that fair?
And to assist if I could, sir.
Yes. And you did that, correct?
Yes, sir.
And so at that point in time when you're driving down that street, the street is, what is the street again?
63rd Avenue.
63rd Avenue. You're going west or east?
West, sir.
You were going west. You were headed towards the traffic stop where you believed that Sergeant Johnson, Officer Potter, and Officer Luckey were there. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And when you were driving west down that road, you saw a white car from the area of the traffic stop, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you saw that car drive at a high rate of speed right towards the car in front of you, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you saw that for about a block. Would that be fair?
Yes, sir.
And then you saw that vehicle, the white vehicle, go over the boulevard and smash head-on right into that Subaru, correct?
Yes, sir.
So at that point in time, when you stopped your car, you had the knowledge of the traffic stop, 3 officers there, and this fellow, this car, you saw take off towards you at a high rate of speed from the traffic stop, go over a lane and hit a car head-on in your city, correct?
Yes, sir.
Did that alarm you at all?
Very much, sir.
And is that why you drew your gun and said, show me your hands or get out of the vehicle? Was that the reason?
Yes, sir.
Were you trained to do what exactly you did there, sir?
Yes, sir.
And when you kept saying, what were you saying when you had your gun pointed? You wanted him to get out of the car, correct?
Yes, sir. I believe it was put your hands up, put your hands up. At one point, I believe I said, get out of the car so we can help him.
And this was a car that you could not see in the back seat, correct?
Yes, sir.
And all you could see, if anything, would be the waving of the hands of the passenger, correct?
Yes, sir.
And the passenger was not following your orders, correct?
Yes, sir.
For a period of time that we watched the video, correct?
Yes, sir.
And finally she did get out of the car, correct?
Yes, sir.
And after that you were able to get the driver out of the car, and we saw at the end of that video that the police officers, the ER, what are they called? The emergency doctors or
paramedics, sir.
Paramedics, thank you. The paramedics were working on Daunte Wright. You brought yourself over to help them. And was that what you were trained to do?
Yes, sir. I believe my medic bag arrived first before the paramedics were even there.
Okay. And before the paramedics arrived, were other officers working on Daunte Wright?
Yes, sir.
And what were they doing?
Assessing his injuries, trying to figure out how best to treat his injuries and save his life, sir.
Trying to save his life, correct?
Yes, sir.
To revive him, correct?
Yes, sir.
So all in all, after you're on the scene, was it approximately 15, 20 minutes? I'll withdraw that. When did you first learn that this was an officer-involved shooting?
I don't know exactly. It would be much later.
Okay, how much later? Do you remember? Was it after you left the scene of the traffic accident?
It would be before that, shortly before that, I think when, starting to piece it together, obviously, when we were able to find out that obviously he had been shot, and I believe I was talking to one of the cops and said, he got shot, he's shot, and it happened between there and here. So.
Okay. We have a moment, Your Honor.
Yes.
While you were there, did you see movement of the driver at all in the beginning?
Can you clarify in the beginning of what part, sir?
Oh, I'm sorry. When you first arrived, when you saw the accident, you saw the car coming towards, and by the way, if that Subaru wasn't in front of you, that car probably would have hit you, is that right?
Cause for speculation.
He was there, he saw it, Your Honor.
Well, the objection was sustained.
All right. In any event, when you stopped your vehicle and you had your gun there, did you see movement of the driver?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And that would be indicating that at that point in time, the driver was still alive, correct?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. That's all I have, Judge.
All right. Is there any redirect?
Officer Salvosa, when did you get the first hint that this was an officer-involved shooting?
Probably shortly after they had taken him out of the car, and piecing it together. As far as officially, not until they told me that I was a witness.
Sure.
It had to be...
Yeah, less than official. Did you talk to any witnesses that caused you to believe that it was an officer-involved shooting?
I did not talk to any witnesses that led me to believe it was an officer-involved shooting, no.
Not Katie Bryant?
I did talk to Katie Bryant, yes. She did say that she believed her son was shot.
Shot by whom?
A police officer.
Could you describe the movement?
Back to this hearsay, Your Honor. It's also outside the scope of the cross-examination.
I don't know what your question was. I mean, what is your question?
He's answering my question, Your Honor.
Okay.
Officer Salvosa, I think I just needed some clarity. What movement of the driver, Mr. Wright, did you actually see when you were holding him at gunpoint?
It's hard to say, but kind of he was moving back and forth and kind of rocking a little bit. It's hard to say specifically because it was obstructed by the passenger, but there was kind of movement of this back and forth a little bit.
Okay, no further questions.
Okay. Thank you, officer. You may step down. Okay, members of the jury, we are going to take a lunch break and we'll get started up at 1:30. Counsel, you'll alert me when the autopsy photos are going to be shown, okay? So we can alert Court TV.
Your Honor, the next witness, there will be maybe we can speak off the record.
It'll be what?
Perhaps we can speak off the record. I'll give the court of counsel notice as to
Okay. Good. Thank you.